Right now, the House is debating on how America should handle the acceptance of foreign refugees. They're considering a Republican bill that would intensify the screening process for any Syrians or Iraqis looking to enter the U.S.
President Obama has vowed to veto the measure should it pass, but a new poll shows a majority of Americans don't support his view. Only 28% back his plan to resettle 10,000 Syrians. 11% want to accept only Christians. House Speaker Paul Ryan addressed the bill in his weekly briefing today.
When we know that ISIL is already telling us that they are trying to infiltrate the refugee population, when we have indications that some of the Paris bombers, one at least, may have come through the refugee routes, don't you think that common sense dictates that we should take a pause and get this right? Our first priority here is the safety of the American people. And we do not have to pick among our values. We're a compassionate nation. These refugee laws are important laws. We're not talking about having a religious test. We're talking about a security test. And given the fact that we know that ISIS is trying to come and attack us and other Western nations, it just is common sense that we pause, reevaluate, and make sure that we have the proper standards in place to make sure something like what happened in Paris doesn't happen here.
And as the debate continues, our Nancy Cordes is tracking developments on Capitol Hill. She joins us now by phone. Hello, Nancy.
Hey, Don. Hey, Christine.
So the floor debate's going on, but President Obama has already put out notice that he intends to veto this bill if it passes. Speaker Ryan spoke a short time ago. Do you know what his reaction to the president's veto threat is?
Yes, he says he's going to go ahead with this vote anyway. He's going to send it to the Senate, and he says he finds the president's position, in his words, baffling because he doesn't understand why, in the light of the Paris attacks, the administration wouldn't support a bill that he and other Republicans say doesn't really keep refugees out. It merely requires top administration officials to certify that each one that comes into the country does not pose a security threat. We just heard a couple of minutes ago from a Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, who said, well, it's more than that. It ties up top security officials in the administration. It requires them to review thousands of applications that normally are handled by professionals who are used to dealing with this. And she argues that it sends the wrong message around the world. So soon after the Paris attacks, she argues that it makes it look like we are shutting our doors on people who are in the most desperate of situations.
Any other concerns brought up there on the floor today, Nancy?
Well, I think that there are a lot of Democrats who are going to vote for this bill, and that's a challenge for the administration, which has clearly come out strongly against it. A number of Democrats feel that they can't vote against it because they are getting the phone calls, too, from constituents saying, I'm very concerned about security here in the U.S., and they feel that there just isn't anything in this bill egregious enough for them to vote against it. And furthermore, there's some frustration on the part of some Democrats that they feel that the administration hasn't given them enough cover here, that the administration hasn't been forceful enough in explaining why it opposes this bill, why it wants, why the president would veto it. And without that strong argument, Democrats feel that they are being placed in a sort of precarious position where if they vote against it, it looks like they are soft on terror. So I do think even though Democratic leaders have said that they are against this bill, I think you'll see a lot of rank and file get behind it today.
Sorry, Nancy. So yesterday I actually interviewed a refugee resettlement official, and he was telling me that the process is already so entailed that it can take 3 or 4 years. They say between 18 and 24 months, but it can take. I spoke with a refugee yesterday, and she just moved in July, her whole family from Syria, after 4 years of being on this list. They describe being interviewed numerous times. They describe background checks. They not only are they interviewed, but their neighbors are interviewed. The people in their mosques in their home country are interviewed. And it takes a long time. I assume that that's the administration's argument, and the Democrats who are going to vote against this bill, that their argument is there are already safety checks in place right now, and you're just going to further encumber the system.
Right. They say that the concern by Republicans is misplaced, that if you're worried about people getting into the country who have nefarious plans, you should be looking elsewhere. You should be looking beyond the refugee program, because these are people who are screened more heavily than just about anybody. They say, what about people who come to the U.S. on a visa waiver? You know, we've got thousands and thousands of people, who come into the U.S. every year just saying, you know, they're coming from Europe or wherever, saying, I'm going on a vacation. And the Democrats argue this is the program that's far more ripe for infiltration than the refugee program, where these people are screened, as you reported in your story, so heavily. They also say there's been a bill languishing for years, ever since the Bush administration, that would deny people who are already on a no-fly list here in the U.S. from getting a gun. So if you're a suspected terrorist and you're on that no-fly list and you went to buy a gun, you would be denied. But this is something that Republicans have been opposed to in the past, partly because whenever you get into the topic of gun legislation, they fear that it's you start passing any kind of legislation that restricts access to guns, and they fear that that's a slippery slope and a violation of the Second Amendment. So, what Democratic leaders are arguing is, you're going after a program that is already working, that has proved to work for years and years, and we don't have, any record of people with terrorist aims coming in via the refugee program. But we do have people who are committing violence in this country who are coming in through other means, and that's what we should be focusing on right now.
And, that makes me think of this following question, Nancy, and that is, has there been any talk, has anybody brought up the fact that this bill, from what I understand, only targets Iraqi and Syrian refugees? Why not widen the scope?
Right. Well, I think it's because, of what happened in Paris and the fact that one of the suspected terrorists may have come into Europe on either a fake or real Syrian passport, posing as a refugee. And I think if Republicans had brought into the scope to all refugees, which some want to do. Rand Paul, for example, has put forward a bill in the Senate that would block refugees from, I think it's something like 20 or 30 different countries, hotspots around the world. But I think that there was concern that if this bill got too broad, that would, open it up to more opposition. They also wanted to move very quickly. They wanted to be able to send a message before they leave for Thanksgiving break that they have grave concerns about allowing in Syrian refugees. They know that they can't stop it altogether because this is up to the administration, that Congress can't say you're not allowed to bring in any refugees, and the administration has committed to bringing in 10,000 over the next calendar year. But they still wanted to send some kind of message. This is what they could agree on quickly enough that they could vote today before they leave as early as this afternoon.
Well, it is definitely the hot button topic, even on social media. I'm telling you, I have Facebook friends who have been going nuts on this for over a day, 2 days at least. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.
Thanks.